Hello, it's Nick joining you. Thank you, film dudes and dudettes, for giving me some of your time today. I wanted to take you through some insight into how I made version 1984. If you haven't seen it yet, please make sure to click through and give it a watch. It's not too long, only a few minutes long. It took the shortest amount of time to actually produce, and yet it's my proudest short film to date. Go figure. So let's actually work out how I actually did it.
If you did, they'd be, I think they'd be over here.
Cool. God, that looks funky. The concept was really blending the kind of the next generation or next iteration of something like Google Glass. What will it actually be able to do? And I kind of like the idea of playing with something that's actually quite smart and intelligent, but not quite yet human. So it fails in a few areas and obviously tries to help our protagonist as much as possible, but isn't always actually the most helpful. So I got a group of people together who were interested and kind enough to give me their time, and so we made this thing a couple of days after Christmas, and really just took a couple of weeks to edit, because as I said, I wanted to get it up on the IB Film Dude channel for you guys. I thought that'd be the most interesting to watch, shooting it through the point of view of this Google Glass. That simple constraint actually enabled me to really just think about what was on the screen. I wasn't thinking about coverage, I wasn't thinking really about sound, even though there was some dialogue in there. I simply used some lavalier mics to record the sound. I didn't worry about that too much. It's not perfect, but that was cool because I could get back to really thinking about how to tell the story when the camera would never cut. It was one continuous transition, one continuous shot. And so I went about trying to think about the most entertaining way to put that technology into that scenario. And we got a bunch of people together and started just walking through. I've never choreographed an action scene. I've never filmed a film with stunts before. And I certainly am not saying that this is an action-packed short or full of stunts, but it was quite interesting and quite a challenge to think about how to make these little fight sequences and these little interactions with the men in black, how to actually make it as engaging as possible without disorienting the viewer, because if the camera was on my head, you can't move around too quickly, otherwise your audience doesn't know where you are. So how I shot it was to keep it as simple as possible. It was filmed with a GoPro on top of a very fashionable bicycle helmet, which was $5. So right up to filming, that was the only money I spent, a $5 bicycle helmet, and used a GoPro. A couple of days after Christmas, we all got together, and actually a day before the shoot, I had one of the main actors, Brett, who's an absolutely lovely guy. Thank you again, Brett. Thank you to everyone actually for helping me. Brett came around the day before and we just walked through the setups. We walked through where I thought we might be filming in. We kept it as simple as possible, as I said. Everyone supplied their own costume. There wasn't really any makeup or any set dressing to speak of. We just filmed in my mum and dad's house. Thanks, guys. We had three main areas. We had inside the house, we had outside at the back at the pool area, and we had out the front. So with those three areas, I walked everyone through where they would be pretty much allowed to move within those areas, so that I would always be coming to them effectively. But by having them add a little bit of movement, well, of course, that makes the scene as dynamic as possible. Brett, the first man in black you see, is actually the only guy to move in between those areas. He goes from outside to inside. So we didn't have too long to shoot. We ran it a couple of times, it actually started bucketing down, so we did the best we could with what we had and the time we had. But overall I was pretty happy because, again, we had a nice flow, nice sense of movement. I also filmed in 50 frames a second, which is slow motion, which just allowed me again to help slow down any areas where I felt I just needed to. And there were a couple of areas where I did actually use speed ramping up and down to help me for you guys to take all that information on screen in, just a few extra frames to help take it in. So the editing itself was actually relatively simple yet complicated. The process was simple. All I needed to do was find my in and out points because it was one continuous clip. That was the easy part. Obviously on top of that, I layered in the visual elements, which again would help actually sell the story and tell the story. A lot of the visual elements weren't there to just be window dressing. There were elements that the protagonist would interact with. I wanted this Google Glass version 2 or version 1.9.84 to kind of work within an augmented reality space. So whilst a lot of the visuals are simple overlays where they appear on screen and they actually don't move, most of the elements actually moved in 3D space, whether that's the scanning of the mower or the bikini girl. So those effects were done with a couple of elements within motion tracking. Motion tracking is simply having some kind of software. I used Arrange, I used After Effects, the built-in tracker for that. I used Mocha AE when I needed just a little more control and a little more finesse. I also used Buju, which is a match moving software. All of these methods were quite difficult, just simply because of not only the bitrate of the GoPro, but the speed at which a lot of these, a lot of these sequences were taking place was quite fast, and there was a lot of motion blur in the video itself. So I would actually say 99% of the tracks were either completed frame by frame by me, or actually there were actually a lot where I'd try and use one of these elements to track, but it just wouldn't work. So I went frame by frame and created that track myself. So that was quite time consuming. But once I'd done that, that really broke the back of it. And again, I could implement those visual elements to help tell the story. So that was the visual effects. And the sound design, well, again, it was really just me. So we recorded dialogue for myself, acting almost like a narrator, which helped again put out there some more information so the audience could get a better understanding and get into that story more. And that was actually done with a voiceover mic, a cardioid microphone, and I actually recorded, rather than record in a sort of a soundproofed environment, I actually recorded downstairs where we've got a tiled floor to replicate the tiled floor of the house where the first sort of sequence takes place when we find the Google Glass. I recorded outside just so we could get a sense of the external world, which is obviously I'm doing a lot of talking outside as well in the actual short. And we also had my friend Bobby Lee do the voiceover work for the Google Glass. And we actually did that in this room with the same cardioid mic, and everyone else we actually recorded on location with hidden lav mics. There was a Rode Lav, there were a couple of smart lavs used, and unfortunately one on Nat, the first pool girl, her audio failed, so unfortunately we actually had to replace that, but she was actually able to do some ADR for me off-site and back down in New South Wales and emailed the file over, which is awesome and fits in fine, I think. And there you have it, a little bit of music from the music bed and some royalty-free stuff from the YouTube audio library itself, and you have a short film. And all in all, as I said, I'm really pleased with it. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks again to actually everyone involved helping me make it. And that's how I made version 1984. I hope that's been of use for you. I'd love to hear if you've ever made some one take, one shot continuous films, because looking back, there's a lot of things I'd do differently and a lot of things I think I could improve there. If you'd like to know any other particular area about the short film itself, then please let me know in the comments below. But other than that, please make sure to subscribe, because I can absolutely tell you we have some awesome content coming not too far in the distant future. So I hope you subscribe and stick around. Right, cheers guys!